Wittgenstein becomes important again in the age of AI, from language games to the intelligence field. With the emergence of generative AI, we are once again confronted with the fundamental question: does AI truly understand? AI can write articles, translate languages, engage in discussions, and even generate software. Its capabilities are so impressive that many people have begun to feel that AI genuinely understands. But what does it actually mean to understand? One philosopher offers a profound insight into this question: Ludwig Wittgenstein. Wittgenstein argued that the meaning of a word lies in its use. Meaning does not exist inside a dictionary. It emerges through the ways people use language and interact with one another. In the age of AI, this idea has become more relevant than ever. Building upon Wittgenstein's philosophy, we propose a further step. Intelligence is not merely a capability contained within an individual. Rather, it is an emergent phenomenon that is formed through the relationships among humans, AI, organizations, and society. In this video, we begin with Wittgenstein's concept of language games and explore how it leads to a new perspective on intelligence for the AI era, the intelligence field. Let us pause and ask the question once again. Today's AI can write articles. It can translate between languages. It can engage in conversations with people. It can even generate sophisticated software. Its capabilities are so impressive that many of us begin to feel that AI truly understands. But does it? AI certainly uses language. However, are those words the same as the meaning we experience in everyday life? Understanding another person's intentions, reading a situation, making decisions based on past experience, sharing the context of a particular moment. What we call understanding involves far more than simply producing the correct sentence. Ludwig Wittgenstein argued that the meaning of words emerges through the relationships and practices in which they are used. If that is true, then to ask whether AI truly understands, we should not focus only on the capabilities of AI itself. We must also ask, how does AI interact with people? How is language used within society? What kinds of ongoing interactions shape those meanings? In other words, we need to consider the entire network of relationships. Perhaps understanding is not something that exists solely inside a mind. Perhaps it is something that emerges through relationships. This perspective provides a new starting point for rethinking intelligence in the age of AI. So next, let us explore Wittgenstein's concept of language games, and see how understanding arises through interaction and shared practice. What does it really mean to understand? In everyday life, we often use the words knowledge, understanding, and intelligence almost interchangeably, but in reality, they represent three different concepts. Knowledge is the possession of facts and information. Understanding is the ability to grasp the relationships, meanings, and context that connect that knowledge. Intelligence, in turn, is the ability to use that understanding to make decisions and take appropriate action in different situations. In other words, simply acquiring more knowledge does not necessarily lead to understanding. And understanding alone does not automatically produce intelligence. So where does generative AI fit into this picture? Today's generative AI does not possess knowledge in the same sense that humans do. It does not experience the world firsthand. It does not verify facts for itself. Nor does it acquire meaning through lived experience. Instead, it learns statistical relationships and patterns among words from enormous amounts of text, and generates the response that best fits the current context. As a result, AI can behave as if it possesses knowledge and understanding. That is precisely why we are both amazed by its capabilities and compelled to ask an important question: is truly understanding the same as merely appearing to understand? To explore this question, one idea becomes especially important: Wittgenstein's concept of language games. He argued that meaning does not exist solely inside our minds. Rather, it emerges through the ways people use language and interact with one another in shared practices. Next, let us explore the concept of language games and see how it offers a deeper perspective on what understanding really is. How did Wittgenstein think about understanding? The answer he arrived at was remarkably simple. The meaning of a word is its use. This is one of the most famous ideas presented in his book Philosophical Investigations. Many of us assume that the meaning of a word is simply the definition found in a dictionary. But Wittgenstein argued that a dictionary alone cannot determine a word's true meaning. Consider the word justice. In a courtroom, justice may mean the fair application of the law. In everyday conversation, saying that's justice can express agreement or approval. In a social movement, Justice may represent an ideal for creating a better society. Although the word is the same, its meaning changes depending on the situation, the purpose, and the people involved. In other words, the meaning of a word is not something fixed inside our minds. It emerges through the way people interact, share purposes, and use language within a set of shared practices. Wittgenstein called this entire system of linguistic practice a language game. The key insight is that language is not merely a mirror that reflects the world. It is a tool that enables us to engage with the world. A word does not possess a single, fixed meaning from the beginning. Its meaning depends on who is speaking, to whom, in what situation, and for what purpose. Meaning is constantly shaped and reshaped through relationships. So now, let us explore this idea, that the meaning of a word lies in its use, through familiar examples from our everyday lives. Consider the simple phrase, thank you. It is one of the most common expressions we use every day, but does it always carry the same meaning? When we say thank you to someone who has helped us, it expresses genuine gratitude. On the other hand, if we deliberately say thank you to someone who has treated us badly, it becomes sarcasm. When we say thank you after receiving service in a store, it functions as a social courtesy. When the words naturally come out in response to a joyful moment, they express happiness and appreciation. And when we say thank you while sincerely acknowledging another person's feelings, the words strengthen empathy and trust. The words spoken are exactly the same, thank you, yet the meaning we receive is completely different. Why? Because meaning does not reside in the words themselves. It depends on who says them, to whom, under what circumstances, and for what purpose. Meaning emerges through relationships. In other words, meaning is not simply a dictionary definition. It is created through relationships, context, and purpose. This is precisely what Wittgenstein meant by a language game. This perspective is also essential for understanding AI. For AI, understanding language is not simply a matter of knowing the definitions of words. The real question is whether AI can share goals, understand context, and behave appropriately within its relationships with people, other AI systems, organizations, and society. Without considering this entire web of relationships, we cannot truly talk about understanding. From here, we take one more step. If meaning emerges through relationships, perhaps intelligence itself is also something that emerges through relationships. This idea will lead us to a new perspective on intelligence in the age of AI. As the example of thank you shows, even when the words themselves are identical, their meaning does not reside in the words alone. So where does meaning come from? Wittgenstein described the many different ways people use language as language games. In our daily lives, we use language for a remarkable variety of purposes. We ask questions, we give commands, we make promises, we engage in discussions, and we offer apologies. At first glance, all of these may appear to be nothing more than acts of speaking, but each serves a different purpose, each follows different rules, and each carries different expectations about how others should respond. A question calls for an answer, a command calls for action, a promise creates trust and responsibility. A discussion seeks understanding or agreement through reasons and explanations. An apology aims to repair a relationship. In other words, we use language according to different rules depending on the situation. This is what Wittgenstein called a language game. The meaning of words is not fixed inside a dictionary. It emerges through the practice of people interacting with one another, sharing purposes, responding to situations, and participating in common activities. In other words, meaning exists in the way language is used. This is the essence of Wittgenstein's philosophy of language and understanding. But what happens if we take this idea one step further? If understanding emerges through relationships, could intelligence itself also emerge through relationships? Next, let us explore this new perspective. Consider the world of science. Scientists observe, they formulate hypotheses, they conduct experiments, and they verify their results. In this world, evidence and logic are the standards for determining what is true. Now consider the world of law. There, decisions are expected to follow legal rules and established procedures. What counts as correct is determined not only by evidence, but also by laws, rights, and responsibilities. In economics, the focus is on the exchange of value and the dynamics of supply and demand. Within a family, love, trust, and compassion become the guiding principles. In education, the goal is learning and personal growth. Within an organization, people are expected to fulfill their roles and produce meaningful results. Each of these worlds has its own purposes, its own rules, and its own values. That is why both the meaning of words and the standards of what is considered right differ from one world to another. In this sense, society is not a single language game. Rather, it is a vast network in which countless language games overlap, interact, and influence one another. Every day, we move naturally among these different games. Within our families, we communicate according to the rules of family life. At work, we discuss issues according to professional norms. At school, we follow the practices of learning. And in society, we act according to laws and social customs. Without even realizing it, we spend our lives moving from one language game to another. But are these language games completely independent? Why can we naturally behave as family members at home, as professionals at work, and as members of society in public? Wittgenstein believed that behind all these language games lies something more fundamental, the shared way of living itself. He called this foundation the form of life. Next, let us explore what Wittgenstein meant by this idea of the form of life. At this point, Wittgenstein's philosophy takes us one step deeper. Language games do not exist in isolation. Behind them lies something more fundamental, the shared lives that people live together. Wittgenstein called this broader foundation the form of life. A form of life includes everything that makes up human existence: working, learning, playing, helping one another, building families, believing, talking together. It is the entire pattern of life that people create and share as members of a community. Within this shared life, we learn language, we learn meaning, and we learn how to understand one another. Take the phrase "thank you" once again. We do not understand its meaning simply by reading a dictionary. Instead, someone helps us. We express our gratitude. They respond. Through countless experiences like these, we gradually come to understand what thank you truly means. In other words, meaning is not found in dictionaries. It is cultivated within the shared life of a community. Language cannot exist independently of life itself. And to understand language is also to participate in that community, to share its culture, its values, and its way of living. By now, a deeper picture begins to emerge. Meaning does not reside in words alone. It arises through human relationships, the activities of a community, and the shared form of life in which people live together. So what happens if we apply this idea to AI? Today's generative AI has never experienced a form of life in the way humans do. Yet it has learned from the vast body of language produced throughout human society. So what, exactly, has AI learned? That is the question we will explore next. Now, let us consider how generative AI learns. AI does not simply memorize a dictionary. Take the phrase "thank you." Sometimes it expresses genuine gratitude. Sometimes it is used sarcastically. Sometimes it functions as a matter of social courtesy. And sometimes it conveys empathy or joy. AI does not learn each of these uses as separate rules. Instead, it learns from an enormous collection of human language, articles on the internet, conversations, books, news reports, legal documents, social media, computer programs. By learning from this vast range of linguistic activity, AI acquires an understanding of how language is actually used across human society. In other words, AI is not learning meaning itself. It is learning the immense patterns of how words are used by people in real contexts. That is why modern AI can interpret context and generate responses that are appropriate to a given situation. In a sense, AI has learned the enormous language game of human society, along with many of its rules, conventions, and patterns. This raises an important question. Is AI still merely a tool? Or has it become a new participant in the language games of human society? Next, let us explore the role of AI from this new perspective. As we have seen so far, AI does not simply memorize the definitions found in a dictionary. Instead, it learns from the vast collection of language games that take place throughout human society. As a result, AI can now write articles, answer questions, engage in discussions, translate languages, generate software, create stories, and carry on conversations with people. In other words, AI is increasingly becoming an entity that participates in many of the language games of human society, using language in ways that resemble human communication. In science, it reads research papers, organizes hypotheses, and contributes to discussions. On social media, it summarizes information, generates comments, and helps people communicate. In business, it develops ideas, prepares documents, and supports decision-making. In creative writing, it crafts stories, develops characters, and imagines new worlds. And in everyday conversation, it answers questions, offers advice, and assists human communication. In other words, AI is not confined to a single language game. It moves across countless language games, science, law, economics, education, social media, creative writing, and everyday conversation. This is a fundamentally new capability that traditional computers never possessed. Yet this raises an important question. AI certainly participates in language games. It converses with people. It engages in discussions. It writes. And it supports human decision-making. But is it participating in the same way that humans do? When we view this question through Wittgenstein's concept of the form of life, it takes on an entirely new meaning. So next, let us ask, does AI truly live a form of life? As we have seen, AI has learned the language games of human society and can behave as though it were one of their participants. However, the way AI participates is fundamentally different from the way humans do. Human beings have bodies. We see the world. We touch it. We feel pain. And we build our understanding through lived experience. Every choice we make carries responsibility. Keeping a promise builds trust. Breaking a promise destroys it. We experience both success and failure. Through joy and sorrow, we gradually form our values. And we live our lives with purposes that reach toward the future. All of these are part of what Wittgenstein called a form of life. Now consider AI. AI has no body. It does not experience the world directly. It bears no responsibility for its actions. It cannot lose the trust of others in the way a human can. It does not experience pain or fear, nor does it experience joy or regret, and it has no purpose for its own life. In other words, AI can learn the rules of language games and respond appropriately, but it does not live those rules. To put it another way, AI does not use language from within a form of life. Instead, it has learned the patterns of language games accumulated throughout human society and behaves as if it were one of their participants. Here lies the fundamental difference between humans and AI. But in the age of AI, the most important question is not simply to emphasize this difference. The real challenge is understanding how AI can become a partner that connects with human society and collaborates within our lives. If AI cannot share human purposes, values, situations, and relationships, then no matter how intelligent it becomes, it will never truly be able to cooperate with people. So the question becomes, what is needed to connect AI with the human world? At this point, what matters most is not the capability of AI, nor is it simply how fluently AI can speak. The real question is whether AI is connected to the human world. Human beings live with purposes. We hold values. We interpret situations. We build relationships with others. And based on all of these, we make decisions. In other words, the world we live in is not merely a world of words. It is a world in which context, relationships, purposes, and values are constantly intertwined. If AI remains disconnected from this world, then no matter how natural its language may sound, its responses can still miss the point. It may fail to understand a person's purpose. It may not share their values. It may not fully grasp the situation at hand. As a result, people hesitate to place their trust in AI, making long-term collaboration difficult. On the other hand, if AI becomes connected to the human world, it can share our goals, understand our situations, make decisions that reflect our values, and build relationships that enable meaningful collaboration. In that sense, AI is no longer just a system for generating answers. It can become a genuine partner that works together with people. Here, connection does not mean being connected to a network. It means being connected to the context, relationships, purposes, and values that shape human life. But how can such a connection be achieved? Next, we will introduce the framework we propose to make this possible. As we have seen, AI cannot become a true member of human society on its own. Even if it understands language and generates natural responses, it cannot create value in society without ongoing relationships with people and organizations. Relationships that provide purpose, responsibility, trust, and collaboration. In other words, for AI to create real value in society, we need a framework that connects people, AI, organizations, and communities. Human beings define goals. They make decisions. They take responsibility. AI understands information. It analyzes data. It generates proposals. and it supports execution. Organizations provide roles, rules, and governance. Communities cultivate trust, encourage learning, and spread new forms of value throughout society. None of these can function effectively in isolation. Only through continuous interaction and collaboration can they create something greater than the sum of their parts. We call this interconnected system the intelligence field. Intelligence does not exist solely inside AI, nor does it exist only within the human mind. Rather, intelligence emerges through the interactions among people, AI, organizations, and communities, as they learn, make decisions, build trust, and evolve together. That is our vision of the intelligence field. However, an intelligence field cannot be realized through philosophy alone. If humans and AI are to collaborate continuously, share decisions, circulate knowledge, and build trust over time, they require an infrastructure that makes this possible. That is why we propose a platform designed to serve as the foundation of the intelligence field. This is where we introduce the Chinoba Platform. The Chinoba Platform is not simply a system that enables AI to communicate with people. It is a social infrastructure designed to continuously connect people, AI, organizations, and communities, enabling them to collaborate and create value together. Human beings define goals and make decisions. Organizations and communities establish roles, rules, and relationships built on trust. AI understands information, performs analysis, and supports decision-making. The knowledge and decisions generated through these interactions are continuously accumulated, shared, and carried forward to inform future decisions. In other words, the relationship among people, AI, organizations, and communities does not end once they are connected. They continue to interact. They share knowledge. They build upon previous decisions. They cultivate trust. And together, they continuously create new value. The Chinoba Platform is the social infrastructure that supports this ongoing cycle. But the platform itself is not the ultimate goal. Our true vision is a world in which people, AI, organizations, and society collaborate continuously, allowing intelligence itself to grow and evolve over time. We call this new form of intelligence the intelligence field. So far, we have explored the relationship between AI and understanding through the philosophy of Ludwig Wittgenstein. We have seen that the meaning of words does not exist in a dictionary. It emerges through the way language is used. We have also seen that language games are grounded in a shared form of life. And we have seen that AI has learned the vast language games of human society and can behave as one of their participants. Yet AI does not live a form of life. That is precisely why AI can create social value only through its relationships with people, organizations, and communities. This leads us to the idea we propose, the intelligence field. Intelligence is not a capability that exists only inside AI, nor is it something that exists only within the human mind. People, AI, organizations, and society interact with one another. They share knowledge. They make decisions. They build trust. And they continue learning from experience. It is through this continuous cycle that intelligence emerges and evolves. In other words, intelligence is not merely a capability. It is a phenomenon that emerges through relationships. Knowledge accumulates. Decisions create new meaning. Trust enables collaboration. Experience enriches context. And learning becomes the foundation for the next generation of intelligence. This cycle cannot emerge from a single individual. It cannot emerge from AI alone. Nor is it created by humans alone. Only through the continuous interaction of people, AI, organizations, communities, and society can intelligence continue to grow. This is what we call the intelligence field. Finally, let us summarize the key ideas we have explored throughout this presentation. Throughout this presentation, we have explored the nature of understanding and intelligence in the age of AI through the philosophy of Ludwig Wittgenstein. Wittgenstein famously argued that the meaning of a word is its use. The meaning of language does not exist in a dictionary. It emerges through the ways people interact with one another, use language in everyday life, and build shared practices over time. We believe this insight can be extended even further in the age of AI. Today, the challenge is no longer limited to the meaning of words. The deeper question is how humans and AI can understand one another, make decisions together, build trust, and create new forms of value. To answer that question, it is no longer sufficient to think of intelligence as the capability of a single entity, whether a human or an AI. Instead, we propose that intelligence is an emergent phenomenon formed through the continuous interactions among people, AI, organizations, communities, and society. Knowledge is shared, decisions accumulate, trust is cultivated, experience grows, learning continues. Through this ongoing cycle of relationships, intelligence itself continues to evolve. That is why we extend Wittgenstein's idea, meaning is found in use, into a new perspective for the age of AI. Intelligence is found in relationships. We believe that the most important challenge of the AI era is not building ever larger AI systems or competing to create more powerful models. What truly matters is designing systems in which people, AI, organizations, communities, and society continuously collaborate, learning and growing together. We call the environment where this becomes possible the intelligence field. Finally, let us conclude by sharing the future we hope to build together. Thank you very much for watching this presentation to the end. In this video, we began with Ludwig Wittgenstein's famous insight: the meaning of a word is its use. From this starting point, we explored what intelligence means in the age of AI. Building on Wittgenstein's philosophy, we proposed a new perspective. Intelligence is found in relationships. We believe that intelligence does not belong exclusively to human beings, nor does it belong solely to AI. Rather, intelligence emerges as people, AI, organizations, communities, and society interact with one another, learning, making decisions, building trust, and growing together. At Chinoba.org, we are developing this idea of the intelligence field as an open research initiative. Our research explores AI architecture, knowledge infrastructure, trust, coordination, governance, and the evolving relationship between AI and society. Through our blog, GitHub, and YouTube channel, we share not only theoretical ideas but also practical implementations and real-world applications. If today's presentation sparked your interest, we warmly invite you to visit Chinoba.org and explore our research. The age of AI is not an era in which humans and AI compete against one another. It is an era in which we combine our strengths, cultivate intelligence together, and build a better society. Together with the concept of the intelligence field, we will continue exploring that future. Thank you once again for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in our next presentation.